Most people think Texas is beating California in energy because of politics. That explanation is simple, it's intuitive, and it's wrong. What's actually happening is much deeper and much more important for anyone deploying capital in infrastructure. Because the real driver is not ideology, it's not policy preference, and it's not even technology, it's time. More specifically, it's how fast you can get power. And once you see that, you realize something critical. Energy markets are no longer constrained by supply. They are constrained by interconnection economics. The dominant narrative is that this divergence is political. Different states, different parties, different priorities. And yes, regulatory culture does matter. But this framing leads people to focus on the wrong variables. Because politics does not determine how fast a project connects to the grid. It does not determine how long a queue takes to clear. And it does not determine how quickly capital gets deployed. So if you analyze energy markets through a political lens, you're looking at the surface, not the system. The real constraint isn't political, it's structural. The real driver is interconnection economics. Who gets power first determines who deploys first, and who deploys first captures returns first. Grid access is no longer a technical detail. It's the gating variable of the entire system. Because capital doesn't wait for perfect conditions, it flows to wherever deployment is possible. So the question is no longer, where is energy cheapest? The real question is, where can you connect, and how fast? Now here's the key shift most people miss. Energy supply is not the problem anymore. Solar is scaling rapidly across the US, wind continues to expand, and battery storage is growing even faster. We are entering an era of energy abundance, at least on paper. There is no shortage of projects, there is no shortage of capacity. So if supply is expanding, why does deployment still feel constrained? Because the bottleneck has moved. The real bottleneck is interconnection, not generation, not technology, not capital, the queue. The process of getting permission to connect to the grid has become the dominant constraint. Projects that are fully financed, fully designed, and ready to build can sit idle for years. Not because they can't generate power, but because they can't access the system. And that delay is not marginal, it's measured in years. And the situation is getting worse. The interconnection queue has grown exponentially over the past decade, from small backlog to large backlog to massive backlog. Today, the total capacity waiting in queues exceeds the entire installed base of the system, which means something structurally important. Projects don't wait months anymore. They wait years. And backlog compounds, it doesn't clear. And this is where it becomes a capital problem, because delay is not neutral. Every month in the queue is lost revenue. Every year is compressed returns. Capital is deployed, but not producing. Equity sits idle. Debt accrues cost. IRR deteriorates. And most importantly, that capital is locked. It cannot redeploy into faster opportunities. So interconnection delay is not just operational friction. It is financial erosion. Now let's look at Texas. ERCOT operates as a relatively independent grid. Fewer coordination layers. Faster internal decision-making, more market-driven dynamics. Interconnection processes are simpler, timelines are shorter, and critically, the system is optimized for speed. This doesn't mean it's perfect, but it means something very important. Projects can move. Now compare that to California. CAISO operates within a much more complex system. Federal oversight, state regulation, environmental review, local coordination. Each layer adds stability, but also latency. Interconnection studies take longer, approvals take longer, coordination takes longer, and over time that compounds into multi-year delays. This is where the divergence becomes undeniable. In Texas, interconnection timelines might be measured in 1 to 2 years. In California, it can extend to 3, 5, even longer. That gap is not incremental, it is structural. And for capital-intensive infrastructure, time is not a detail. Time is the return profile. So what we're really seeing are two different system designs. Texas prioritizes speed and flexibility. California prioritizes coordination and stability. Neither is inherently better, but they produce very different outcomes because system design determines how fast capital can move, and that determines everything downstream, and capital responds immediately. It moves to where it can deploy. Faster timelines mean faster returns. Predictable timelines mean lower risk. Shorter cycles mean faster learning. Developers don't wait for perfect markets. They go where projects can actually get built. So capital doesn't follow ideology, it follows execution. This leads to the core thesis. Velocity attracts investment. In infrastructure, capital is patient, but it is not static. It competes. And in competitive environments, the speed of deployment becomes a primary selection factor. This is not about preference. It's about the time value of capital. So how do developers actually behave? They don't optimize for the best solar resource. They don't optimize for theoretical efficiency. They optimize for time to revenue. Because a slightly worse site that connects faster outperforms a perfect site that waits years. So the real optimization function is simple. Not where resources are best, but where timelines are shortest. Which leads to a fundamental equation. Location equals time, and time equals money. Geography is no longer just physical, it is financial. Where a project sits, and which system governs it, directly determines its economic outcome. Location has become a timing asset. Now, this advantage is not permanent. It is structural. It comes from system design. And system design can change. We're already seeing signals of reform. Queue processes are being reevaluated. Regulatory structures are evolving. So this is not a fixed advantage, but it is real, right now. Which brings us back to the public narrative. Most debates focus on politics, policy, or technology. But none of those are the binding constraint anymore. Technology is abundant. Policy moves slowly. Politics explains very little. The real constraint is timing, specifically interconnection queues and approval velocity. This is what Tabias focuses on. Not surface narratives, but structural variables, infrastructure timing, capital flow dynamics, system design, because these are the forces that actually determine outcomes. If you want to understand where capital will move next, you need to understand the system beneath the market. That's what Tabias research is built for. See you next time.